The Draconis females had entered mating season, and nothing would stop them, not even the protests of Earth's unprepared population. As the massive alien warships descended through Earth's atmosphere, their hulls shimmering with advanced technology, humanity's leaders scrambled to respond to this unprecedented crisis. Ren, the formidable Draconis female leading the alien delegation, strode into the United Nations emergency session. Her scales gleamed under the fluorescent lights as she fixed the assembled world leaders with her piercing gaze. "We require mates," she declared, her voice resonating with barely contained urgency. "Our species faces extinction without successful breeding. You will provide compatible males, or we will take them by force." The room erupted into chaos as translators relayed her demands. Security personnel tensed, hands hovering near weapons. But for many of the human males present, an inexplicable attraction began to take hold. Draconis pheromones permeated the air, clouding judgment and inflaming desire. Jeremy Russell, a 28-year-old xenobiologist, felt a momentary dizziness as the pheromones reached him. But to his surprise, the feeling passed quickly. He realized with a start that he was one of the few men in the room not openly staring at the alien females with naked lust. As the UN's lead scientist on xenobiology, Jeremy knew he had mere days to unravel the mysteries of Draconis physiology and find a diplomatic solution. The fate of two species hung in the balance. If he failed, Earth faced either a forced mating crisis or interstellar war with a technologically superior foe. Initial scans revealed a startling fact. Human males appeared uniquely resistant to Draconis pheromones compared to other known species. This quirk of biology made Earthmen highly desirable to the desperate alien females. It also meant humanity had unexpected leverage in the high-stakes negotiations to come. Jeremy's mind raced as he considered the implications. The Draconis mating cycle occurred only once every 500 years. Their population had been dwindling for millennia due to plummeting birth rates. This explained their extreme measures and willingness to risk conflict with a less advanced species. As more Draconis ships appeared in orbit, groups of human males began volunteering themselves as mates. They were drawn by a mix of exotic attraction, sense of duty, and desire for adventure. This development further complicated already tense negotiations. Jeremy hypothesized that human mating practices might offer a solution to boost Draconis fertility. But would Ren and her people accept what they saw as primitive techniques? As the xenobiologist prepared to present his theories, he steeled himself for the challenge ahead. The next few days would determine the future of human-Draconis relations, and perhaps the survival of an alien race. Jeremy's mind raced as he formulated his plan. The xenobiologist knew that traditional diplomacy alone wouldn't suffice in this unprecedented crisis. He needed to act quickly and decisively. "Madam Secretary," Jeremy addressed the UN representative, his voice steady despite the tension in the room. "I propose a series of controlled experiments to study human-Draconis interactions. It may be our best chance at finding a peaceful resolution." The secretary nodded, her expression grave. "Proceed, Dr. Russell, but tread carefully. The fate of our world depends on your findings." Within hours, Jeremy had secured a state-of-the-art research facility on the outskirts of Geneva. As he prepared the labs, Ren arrived with a contingent of elite Draconis females. Their scales shimmered under the harsh fluorescent lights, a stark reminder of the alien nature of this encounter. "Your methods intrigue me, human," Ren said, her reptilian eyes fixed on Jeremy, "though I doubt your primitive science can solve our crisis." Jeremy met her gaze unflinchingly. "Let's put that to the test, shall we?" The human volunteers arrived soon after, each carefully selected for their physical and psychological resilience. Among them stood Marcus Steele, a former Navy SEAL whose calm demeanor set him apart from the others. As the experiments began, Jeremy meticulously documented every interaction. He observed the humans' reactions to Draconis pheromones, noting with satisfaction that his earlier hypothesis held true. The men showed a remarkable resistance to the aliens' usual methods of attraction. "Fascinating," Jeremy muttered, reviewing the data. "Their biology is actively counteracting the pheromones' effects." Ren hovered nearby, her frustration palpable. "This is pointless. Your males are clearly defective." Jeremy suppressed a smile. Or perhaps they're exactly what your species needs. In the next phase, Jeremy introduced human courtship rituals to the Draconess females. At first, Wren and her companions scoffed at the seemingly primitive displays of affection. "You expect us to be swayed by such simplistic behaviors?" Wren sneered as Marcus offered her a single red rose. But as the experiments progressed, something unexpected happened. The Draconess females began showing signs of physiological changes in response to human interactions. Jeremy's equipment detected increased hormone production and heightened neural activity in areas previously thought dormant in Draconess biology. "Impossible," Wren whispered, her scales flushing a deeper shade of blue as Marcus gently took her hand. Jeremy's excitement grew with each new discovery. The prolonged exposure to human mating practices is triggering a hormonal cascade in your species. This could be the key to enhancing Draconess fertility. As word of the breakthroughs spread, opposition mounted on both sides. Commander Zarthan, a hardline Draconess warrior, arrived at the facility with a group of like-minded soldiers. "This is an affront to our honor," Zarthan roared, his tail lashing angrily. "We are warriors, not lab experiments." Simultaneously, protests erupted across Earth. Conservative groups decried the research as a threat to human genetic purity. Outside the facility, crowds gathered, their angry chants echoing through the halls. Jeremy knew he needed to act fast. "We need to show them the benefits of our findings," he told Wren and Marcus. "I propose a public demonstration of human Draconess compatibility." Wren considered the idea, her expression unreadable. Finally, she nodded. "I will participate, with Marcus as my partner." As preparations for the televised event began, tensions reached a boiling point. Commander Zarthan's faction launched a series of attacks on Earth military installations, threatening to derail the entire peace process. In the midst of the chaos, Jeremy, Wren, and Marcus worked tirelessly to ensure their demonstration would succeed. They knew that the future of both species hung in the balance. The day of the event arrived. As cameras rolled, Marcus and Wren stood before a global audience. The human and Draconess female moved together in a carefully choreographed dance, their movements a blend of both species' courtship rituals. As they touched, a visible spark of energy passed between them. Wren's scales shimmered with an intensity never before seen in her species. The audience watched in awe as the pair demonstrated the potential for harmony between their races. But even as hope began to blossom, alarms blared throughout the facility. Commander Zarthan's forces had breached the perimeter, intent on stopping the demonstration at any cost. Jeremy's heart raced as he realized the fragile peace they had worked so hard to build was on the verge of shattering. He looked at Marcus and Wren, still standing united despite the chaos erupting around them. In that moment, he knew that their next actions would determine the fate of both species. The xenobiologist took a deep breath, his mind already formulating a new plan. The real challenge was just beginning, and Jeremy was determined to see it through, despite the toll. Jeremy's mind raced as he assessed the chaos unfolding around him. The alarms blaring throughout the facility signaled that Commander Zarthan's forces had breached the perimeter, threatening to destroy everything they had worked for. He turned to Marcus and Wren, still standing united on the stage, their demonstration of interspecies harmony now interrupted by the imminent danger. "We need to move," Jeremy said, his voice tight with urgency. "Zarthan's troops will be here any minute." As if on cue, the sound of explosions echoed from the far end of the building. Jeremy led Marcus and Wren through a maze of corridors, their footsteps echoing off the sterile walls. They burst into the main research lab, where Jeremy's team was already frantically working to preserve their data. "Download everything you can," Jeremy ordered, his fingers flying over a nearby console. "We can't let months of research go to waste." Wren watched the humans work with a mix of fascination and concern. "Your efforts may be futile," she said, her scales shifting to a deeper blue. "Zarthan will not stop until he has destroyed all evidence of our collaboration." Marcus placed a reassuring hand on Wren's shoulder, causing her scales to shimmer slightly at his touch. "We'll find a way," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos. "We've come too far to give up now." The lab shook as another explosion rocked the building. Fragments of ceiling tiles rained down on them, covering equipment in a fine layer of dust. Jeremy gritted his teeth, knowing they were running out of time. "We need to get to New York," he said, pocketing a data drive containing their most crucial findings. "The demonstration must go on, no matter what." As they made their way to the facility's underground garage, Jeremy's mind whirled with possibilities. The destruction of their research was a significant setback, but he refused to let it derail their progress. If anything, Zarthan's attack had only reinforced the importance of their work. The trio, along with a small team of researchers, piled into a nondescript van. As they sped away from the facility, Jeremy could see plumes of smoke rising in the rearview mirror. He pushed down the pang of loss, focusing instead on the challenges ahead. The journey to New York was tense, filled with hurried phone calls and frantic planning. Jeremy coordinated with UN security forces, ensuring that the demonstration site would be protected. Ren, meanwhile, reached out to her moderate Draconis allies, rallying support for their cause. "Many of our people are hesitant," Ren reported, her voice tinged with frustration. "They fear change, even in the face of extinction." Jeremy nodded, understanding all too well the resistance they faced. "We need to show them that this isn't about changing who they are," he said. "It's about finding a new path forward, together." As they approached New York City, the scale of the event became clear. The specially constructed arena loomed before them, surrounded by a sea of protesters from both human and Draconis factions. Security checkpoints dotted the perimeter, a testament to the high stakes of their demonstration. Inside the arena, Jeremy and his team worked feverishly to set up their equipment. The destruction of their original research meant they had to rely more heavily on the live demonstration, a fact that both excited and terrified Jeremy. As the arena filled with spectators and dignitaries from both species, Jeremy took a moment to address Marcus and Ren. "Remember," he said, his voice low and intense, "what we do here today could change the course of history for both our peoples. No pressure." Ren's scales rippled with what Jeremy had come to recognize as amusement. "Your species has a curious way of using humor to cope with stress," she observed. Marcus grinned. "You should see us during our sports championships." The lighthearted moment was short-lived as Jeremy stepped up to the podium. Cameras flashed, and he could feel the weight of billions of eyes upon him, both human and Draconis. "Ladies, gentlemen, and honored Draconis guests," Jeremy began, his voice echoing through the arena. "We stand at a crossroads. Two species, separated by vast distances of space and biology, brought together by chance and necessity." As Jeremy introduced the concept of human courtship and mating practices, he could see the skepticism in the eyes of many Draconis audience members. But he pressed on, his words painting a picture of cooperation and mutual understanding. Ren and Marcus took center stage, their movements carefully choreographed to showcase various human courtship rituals. The audience watched in rapt attention as Marcus gently took Ren's hand, causing her scales to flush with a brilliant iridescence. Jeremy explained each gesture, relating it to Draconis physiology and the potential benefits for their species. As Ren and Marcus moved through more intimate gestures, the change in Ren's biology became unmistakable. Her scales pulsed with vibrant colors, and sensors displayed her heightened hormonal activity on large screens around the arena. The audience's skepticism began to give way to fascination. Jeremy could see Draconis females leaning forward in their seats, their eyes fixed on the unusual display before them. Suddenly, a commotion erupted at the back of the arena. Commander Zarthan and his warriors burst through the security cordon, their weapons raised and tails lashing angrily. "Enough of this abomination," Zarthan roared, his voice cutting through the stunned silence of the crowd. As Zarthan and his followers stormed towards the stage, Marcus instinctively moved to shield Ren. The act, so at odds with traditional Draconis gender roles, sent a ripple of surprise through the audience. Jeremy, seeing an opportunity, stepped forward. "Observe," he called out, his voice steady despite the danger. "In human mating practices, protection and care are mutual. Both partners support and defend each other, creating a stronger bond." Ren, emboldened by Marcus's protective stance, straightened to her full height. She met Zarthan's gaze, her voice ringing out clear and strong. "Commander," she said, "I challenge you to see beyond our old ways. Look at what we have discovered here. This could be the key to our survival." Zarthan hesitated, his warriors looking to him for direction. In that moment of uncertainty, Jeremy knew they had a chance to turn the tide. Tide. Ren's words hung in the air, their impact rippling through the crowd. Even Zarthan, his face contorted with rage, seemed to hesitate. Jeremy seized the moment, stepping forward with his hands raised in a gesture of peace. "Commander Zarthan," he said, his voice steady despite the tension crackling through the arena, "I implore you to consider the potential benefits of our research. This isn't about changing who the Draconis are. It's about finding a solution to ensure your species' survival." Zarthan's tail lashed angrily, but he didn't advance further. His eyes darted between Jeremy, Ren, and the captivated audience. The arena held its collective breath, the fate of two species balanced on a knife's edge. In the tense silence, a voice rang out from the Draconis delegation. "I wish to hear more," a female Draconis said, her scales shimmering with curiosity. "If there is a chance to save our people without resorting to forced mating, should we not explore it?" Murmurs of agreement spread through the crowd. Zarthan's warriors looked to their leader, uncertainty evident in their postures. The commander's heart made, but he slowly lowered his weapon. "Speak, human," Zarthan growled, "but know that if your words prove false, the consequences will be severe." Jeremy nodded, acutely aware of the opportunity before him. He launched into a detailed explanation of their findings, his words painting a picture of hope for both species. As he spoke, the hostility in the arena gradually gave way to cautious optimism. In the days following the tumultuous demonstration, the United Nations moved swiftly to capitalize on the fragile peace. The Human Draconis Cooperation Initiative, HDCI, was established, with Jeremy Russell at its helm. The xenobiologist found himself thrust into a role that was part scientist, part diplomat, and part peacekeeper. "We need a secure location," Jeremy told the UN Security Council. "Somewhere we can continue our research without interference from either human or Draconis extremists." The solution came in the form of a remote Pacific island, far from prying eyes and potential saboteurs. As Jeremy oversaw the construction of the new research facility, he couldn't help but marvel at the rapid pace of events. Meanwhile, Ren prepared to return to the Draconis fleet orbiting Earth. The weight of responsibility settled heavily on her shoulders as she stood before the human Draconis research team. "Your findings will shape the future of our species," Jeremy said, handing her a data crystal containing their research. "Are you ready for this?" Ren's scales rippled with tenacity. "I am, but I fear the reaction of our more traditional factions." Marcus stepped forward, his hand hovering near Ren's arm before he remembered himself. "You've got this," he said, his voice warm with encouragement. "Just tell them the truth of what you've experienced here." As Ren's shuttle departed for the Draconis fleet, Jeremy turned his attention to the next phase of their work. He found Marcus in the training center, surrounded by a group of human volunteers. "How's it going?" Jeremy asked, watching as the volunteers awkwardly attempted to mimic Draconis greeting gestures. Marcus grinned, the stress of recent events momentarily forgotten. "Slow but steady. It's not every day you have to teach humans how to court a 7-foot-tall reptilian alien." Jeremy chuckled, but his expression quickly sobered. "We need to accelerate the program. The UN is implementing a global education initiative about the Draconis, but we need results to keep the momentum going." As the weeks passed, Jeremy divided his time between overseeing the research and navigating the complex political landscape of human-Draconis relations. Reports from Ren indicated a growing schism among the Draconis leadership, with a faction supporting continued cooperation while Zarthan and his hardliners pushed for more aggressive measures. The breakthrough came on a sweltering afternoon as Jeremy pored over the latest data from their experiments. His eyes widened as he realized the implications of what he was seeing. "Marcus," he called, his voice echoing through the lab. "Get in here." As Marcus hurried over, Jeremy pointed to the screen. "Look at these hormone levels. The prolonged exposure to human pheromones and mating rituals is triggering a cascade effect in the Draconis females. Their fertility rates are off the charts. Marcus whistled low. This could be the solution they've been looking for. No forced mating, no genetic manipulation. Jeremy nodded, already reaching for his communication device. We need to inform Wren immediately. This could change everything. The news spread quickly through both human and Draconis channels. Within days, Wren contacted the research facility with an update. The moderate faction has convinced our leadership to send a larger delegation, she reported, her image flickering on the console. But be warned, this decision has not been without controversy. Zarthan and his supporters are becoming increasingly vocal in their opposition. Jeremy frowned, recognizing the potential for conflict. We'll be ready for them. The UN has assigned a multinational peacekeeping force to protect our facilities and the Draconis visitors. As the first wave of Draconis females arrived on Earth, Jeremy watched with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. The increased Draconis presence reignited tensions with some human populations, leading to protests and attempted sabotage of HDCI facilities. Colonel James Harper, the leader of the UN peacekeeping force, approached Jeremy after thwarting another attack on the research center. We need to step up our game, the grizzled veteran said. These anti-alien groups are getting bolder. Jeremy nodded, the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. I know, but we can't let security concerns derail our progress. We're too close to a breakthrough. As the research entered its most critical phase, Jeremy found himself pacing the floors of the facility late one night, his mind racing with possibilities. An idea began to form, bold and potentially revolutionary. The next morning, he gathered Marcus, Wren, and the senior members of the research team. I have a proposal, he began, his voice steady despite the enormity of what he was about to suggest. A long-term cohabitation study involving human Draconis pairs. The room erupted in a cacophony of voices, some excited, others skeptical. Jeremy raised his hand for silence. I know it's unprecedented, but we need to understand the full effects of prolonged exposure to human mating practices on Draconis physiology and behavior. He turned to Marcus and Wren, his expression serious. I hate to ask this of you, but would you be willing to be our first pair? Marcus and Wren exchanged a long look, unspoken communication passing between them. Finally, Wren nodded. We will do it, she said, her scales shimmering with a mix of anticipation and apprehension. For the future of both our species. As preparations for the cohabitation study began, Jeremy couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the precipice of something monumental. The fate of two species hung in the balance, and the path ahead was fraught with challenges. But as he watched Marcus and Wren preparing for their groundbreaking experiment, a glimmer of hope sparked in his chest. Perhaps, just perhaps, they were on the verge of proving that cooperation between humans and Draconis was not only possible, but essential for their shared future. The optimism of those early days soon gave way to harsh reality. As Jeremy sat in his office reviewing the latest reports, he couldn't help but feel a sense of dread. The attacks on HDCI facilities had escalated dramatically, with Commander Zarthan's forces causing widespread damage and casualties. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Colonel James Harper entered, his face grim. We've lost another outpost, he reported. Zarthan's getting bolder. We're on the brink of all-out war. Jeremy ran a hand through his hair, his mind racing. We need to accelerate our plans, he said, pulling up a holographic display of Earth. Project Harmony. It's our best shot at proving peaceful coexistence is possible. Within days, construction began on 5 massive, self-contained communities across the globe. Each was designed to house both human and Draconis populations, serving as living laboratories for integration and cultural exchange. Marcus and Wren stood at the edge of their assigned community in the Australian outback, the red earth stretching endlessly before them. It's not going to be easy, Marcus said, squinting against the harsh sun. Wren's scales shimmered with willpower. Nothing worthwhile ever is, she replied, her tail curling around Marcus's leg in a gesture of affection that still surprised him. As the communities took shape, Jeremy focused on analyzing the flood of data pouring in. Late one night, as he pored over the latest reports, his eyes widened in disbelief. "Lysara," he called out to the young Draconis scientist who had recently joined his team. "Look at these readings." Lysara leaned in, her serpentine eyes scanning the data. "Impossible," she breathed. "The prolonged exposure to human mating practices, it's triggering evolutionary changes in our females." Jeremy nodded, his excitement building. Not just increased fertility, these readings suggest the development of pair bonding capabilities similar to humans. This could change everything. As news of the discovery spread, it sent shockwaves through both human and Draconis societies. Protests erupted on Earth, with conservative groups decrying the alien corruption of human relationships. Among the Draconis, a schism formed between those who saw the changes as necessary for survival and those who viewed them as a threat to their way of life. In the Australian community, Marcus and Wren faced the challenges head-on. Cultural clashes between humans and Draconis were frequent and often intense. Marcus found himself mediating a dispute between a human family and their Draconis neighbors, the latter's nocturnal habits disrupting the humans' sleep patterns. "We need to find a compromise," Marcus said, addressing both parties. "Perhaps we can establish quiet hours that work for everyone." Wren, meanwhile, counseled a group of Draconis females struggling with the concept of long-term pair bonding. "It's not about losing our identity," she explained, her scales pulsing with empathy. "It's about adapting to ensure our survival." Despite the difficulties, the project yielded promising results. Draconis fertility rates in the community soared, and the bonds formed between human Draconis couples proved surprisingly strong. But as Project Harmony gained momentum, so did the opposition. Commander Zarthan, seeing his influence wane, planned a desperate final assault. The attack came without warning. Alarms blared through the Australian community as Zarthan's forces breached the perimeter. Marcus and Wren raced to the command center, adrenaline coursing through their veins. "We need to evacuate the civilians," Marcus shouted over the chaos, his military training kicking in. Wren nodded, her tail lashing with tension. "I'll coordinate our defense forces." As they moved to their positions, the integrated human Draconis security team sprang into action. Human tactical expertise combined with Draconis strength, creating a formidable defense against Zarthan's onslaught. In the heart of the battle, Marcus and Wren found themselves fighting. Side by side, Marcus's quick thinking complemented Wren's raw power as they pushed back against the attackers. "On your left," Marcus called out, firing his weapon to take down a Draconis warrior lunging at Wren. She spun, her tail whipping out to knock another attacker off his feet. "Thanks," she hissed, her scales flushed with the heat of battle. As the fight raged on, Jeremy received an urgent communication from Lysara. Her face appeared on the holo display, her eyes wide with excitement and trepidation. "Jeremy, we've made a breakthrough," she said, her voice trembling. "We've identified a hormonal treatment that can accelerate the evolutionary changes in Draconis females. It could solve the fertility crisis in a fraction of the time." Jeremy's heart raced as he processed the implications. "But the changes would be irreversible," he said, his mind spinning with the potential consequences. Lysara nodded solemnly. "It would alter our biology, our culture, forever, but it might be our only chance for survival." As the sounds of battle echoed through the community, Jeremy found himself facing an impossible decision. Authorize the treatment and potentially save the Draconis species at the cost of forever changing them? Or continue with the slower, more natural process of adaptation through human mating practices? The weight of two species' futures pressed down on him as he stared at the data before him, the battle raging outside a stark reminder of the precarious balance they walked. With a deep breath, Jeremy prepared to make a choice that would shape the course of human-Draconis relations for generations to come. "Come." Jeremy's hand hovered over the console, the weight of two species' futures pressing down on him. With a deep breath, he made his choice. "Lysara, we can't implement this treatment immediately," he said, his voice firm. "The risks of irreversibly altering Draconis biology are too great. We'll continue with our current approach and study this as a potential future option. Lysara's scales rippled with disappointment, but she nodded in understanding. I'll continue refining the treatment for future consideration, she replied. Jeremy quickly relayed his decision to Marcus and Wren, who were coordinating the defense of the Australian community. The sounds of battle echoed through the communication channel. Understood, Marcus's voice crackled over the line. We'll hold the line here. On the ground, Marcus and Wren moved in perfect synchronization. Years of working together had honed their combat partnership to a razor's edge. Marcus ducked low, allowing Wren's powerful tail to whip over his head and knock back an advancing Draconis warrior. Left flank, Wren hissed, her scales shimmering with battle fervor. Marcus spun, his tactical training kicking in as he assessed the situation. Pincer movement, he called out to the mixed human Draconis squad behind them. Humans, provide covering fire. Draconis, close in for melee combat. The battlefield became a blur of motion as human and Draconis defenders worked in harmony. Human soldiers laid down suppressing fire, their weapons chattering in the dusty air. Draconis warriors used their superior strength and agility to engage Zarthon's forces in close combat. Above the Australian outback, Colonel James Harper's mixed-species peacekeeping force encountered fierce resistance. Harper's voice rang out over the comms as his fleet engaged Zarthon's blockade. All ships, form up on me, he ordered. Human vessels, focus fire on their shields. Draconis allies, target their weapon systems. The space above Earth lit up with weapons fire as the two fleets clashed. Human ships darted between the larger Draconis vessels, their agility allowing them to slip past enemy defenses. Allied Draconis ships unleashed devastating energy weapons, punching holes in Zarthon's blockade. On the ground, Marcus led his team through the winding streets of the community. They used the urban terrain to their advantage, setting up ambushes and hit-and-run attacks that kept Zarthon's forces off balance. Remember your training, Marcus called out to a group of young human Draconis recruits. Use your strengths. Humans, think creatively. Draconis, trust your instincts. Wren coordinated with the Draconis defenders, her voice carrying over the din of battle. Focus on their weak points, she instructed. Humans have shown us new ways to fight. Use them. As the battle reached its peak, Commander Zarthon found himself backed into a corner. His eyes blazed with desperation as he activated a hidden device on his armor. You leave me no choice, he snarled. Feel the power of true Draconis superiority. A wave of pheromones washed over the battlefield. Zarthon's face twisted into a triumphant grin, expecting chaos to erupt among the defenders. Instead, he was met with a surprising sight. The Draconis females in the community shook off the pheromones' effects with ease. Years of exposure to human mating practices had built up their resistance. Wren stepped forward, her scales shimmering with defiance. Your old tricks won't work here, Zarthon, she declared. We've evolved beyond your control. Confusion rippled through Zarthon's forces as their secret weapon failed. Marcus seized the opportunity, signaling to his team. Now, push forward! The defenders surged forward in a coordinated assault. Marcus weaved through the chaotic melee, his eyes locked on Zarthon. The Draconis commander snarled and charged to meet him. Their clash was a blur of movement. Marcus ducked and weaved, using his smaller size and agility to avoid Zarthon's powerful blows. He landed quick strikes, targeting weak points in the Draconis' armor. Nearby, Wren engaged Zarthon's lieutenant in a test of Draconis strength. Her tail lashed out, knocking the enemy off balance. She followed up with a series of lightning-fast strikes, her combat style a fusion of traditional Draconis techniques and human martial arts. The battle reached its climax as Marcus and Zarthon faced off in the center of the community. Their fight became a symbol of the larger conflict, human ingenuity against Draconis strength. Marcus feinted left, then dropped low, sweeping Zarthon's legs out from under him. As the Draconis commander fell, Marcus pounced, pinning him to the ground. It's over, Zarthon, Marcus said, his voice firm. Surrender now. With their leader captured, the fight drained out of Zarthon's forces. Weapons clattered to the ground as they laid down arms. A cheer went up from the defenders, human and draconis voices mingling in victory. In the aftermath of the battle, Jeremy arrived to survey the damage and begin the recovery process. He walked through the community, noting the signs of cooperation between humans and draconis as they worked to clear debris and tend to the wounded. Lysera approached him, her eyes wide with excitement. "Jeremy, you need to see this," she said, holding out a data pad. "The stress of the battle has accelerated the bonding process between human draconis pairs. The levels of emotional connection are unprecedented." Jeremy studied the data, his mind racing with the implications. He looked up, watching as Marcus and Ren coordinated the recovery efforts, their movements in perfect sync. "Perhaps," he mused, "there's a middle ground between our gradual approach and your hormonal treatment. A voluntary program, maybe. Something to enhance the natural bonding process without drastically altering draconis biology." Lysera's scales shimmered with excitement. "I'll start working on it right away," she said, hurrying off to her makeshift lab. As news of the battle's outcome spread, reactions varied widely. Young draconis females, inspired by the stories of cooperation and deep bonds formed in the Project Harmony communities, began expressing interest in coming to Earth. The draconis fleet in orbit buzzed with debate, the younger generation pushing for change while older members resisted. On Earth, the human population watched the unfolding events with a mix of hope and trepidation. News channels were flooded with debates about the future of human-draconis relations. Politicians argued over the implications for human society, while scientists eagerly anticipated the new research possibilities. Amidst the chaos, Marcus and Ren found themselves thrust into the spotlight. Their leadership during the battle and their obvious deep connection made them the focus of intense public interest. Reporters clamored for interviews, eager to hear their story. Jeremy watched the media frenzy with a thoughtful expression. He turned to Marcus and Ren, who stood nearby, their hands intertwined. "Your story could be the key to promoting further cooperation," he said. "Are you ready to be the face of human-draconis relations?" Marcus and Ren exchanged a long look, years of trust and understanding passing between them in an instant. They nodded in unison. "We're ready," Marcus said. "Whatever it takes," Ren added, her tail curling protectively around Marcus's leg. Jeremy nodded, his mind already racing with plans. "Then let's get to work," he said. "We have a community to rebuild, an initiative to expand, and two species counting on us to forge a path forward." As they walked towards the command center to begin planning, the Australian sun set on the battle-scarred community. The challenges ahead were daunting, but for the first time, there was a sense that humans and draconis were truly united in their goals. The future, uncertain as it was, held the promise of a new era of cooperation and understanding between the two species. As the Australian sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the battle-scarred community, Jeremy Russell stood at the command center's window, his mind racing with plans for the future. The successful defense against Zarthan's forces had marked a turning point, but it was clear that the real work was just beginning. "Marcus, Ren," he called out, turning to face the unlikely pair. "We need to start implementing our expansion plans immediately. The interest in Project Harmony is going to explode after this." Marcus nodded, his hands still intertwined with Ren's. "We're ready. What's our first move?" Jeremy pulled up a holographic map of Earth, dotted with glowing points representing existing and potential Project Harmony sites. "We need to start construction on new habitats and integration centers. I'll work with Earth's governments to secure the resources and land we need." Ren's scales shimmered with excitement. "And what of the hormonal treatment program? Will we proceed?" "Yes, but on a voluntary basis," Jeremy replied. "We'll offer it as an option for those who want to enhance the natural bonding process. Lysera's already working on refining the treatment." As if on cue, Lysera burst into the room, her eyes wide with excitement. "Jeremy, you won't believe this. We're receiving thousands of requests from young draconis females in the orbiting fleet. They want to join the Earth-based communities." The news sent a ripple of surprise through the room. Marcus whistled low. "That's going to create some logistical challenges." Jeremy nodded, his brow furrowed in concentration. "We'll need to fast-track our construction plans. Marcus, Ren, I have a special assignment for you two. I want you to become our cultural ambassadors. Ren tilted her head, curiosity evident in her reptilian features. What exactly does that entail? You'll travel to different Project Harmony sites, Jeremy explained. Share your experiences, provide guidance on human-draconess cohabitation. Your bond, your ability to work together. It's inspiring. We need to show others that it's possible. Marcus and Ren exchanged a look, years of trust and understanding passing between them in an instant. We're in, Marcus said firmly. Over the next few weeks, the Human Draconis Cooperation Initiative kicked into high gear. Construction crews worked around the clock to expand existing communities and build new ones. The sound of hammers and the hum of energy fields filled the air as human and Draconis workers labored side by side. Jeremy found himself constantly on the move, shuttling between meetings with government officials, coordinating with construction teams, and overseeing the implementation of new programs. He stood before a panel of skeptical politicians, his voice steady as he made his case. The expansion of Project Harmony is not just beneficial for the Draconis, he argued. It's an opportunity for humanity to grow, to learn, to become part of something greater than ourselves. While Jeremy navigated the political landscape, Marcus and Ren embarked on their tour of Project Harmony sites. They arrived at a newly established community in Brazil, the air thick with humidity and the scent of unfamiliar flora. A crowd had gathered to greet them, a mix of humans and Draconis, their faces filled with curiosity and hope. Marcus stepped forward, Ren by his side. We're here to show you what's possible, he began, his voice carrying across the assembled group. Human and Draconis, working together, living together. It's not just a dream. It's happening right here, right now. Ren nodded, her tail swaying gently behind her. It's not always easy, she added, her voice a soft hiss. Our cultures are different. Our biology is different. But the rewards of understanding each other, of forming these bonds, they're worth every challenge. As they spoke, sharing stories of their experiences and offering practical advice, the crowd listened intently. Humans and Draconis alike leaned in, absorbing every word. By the end of the session, the air buzzed with excitement and possibility. Back at the main Project Harmony facility, Lysara oversaw the implementation of the voluntary hormonal treatment program. She stood in a state-of-the-art laboratory surrounded by holographic displays showing complex molecular structures. The treatment is designed to enhance emotional bonding capacity, she explained to a group of Draconis females who had volunteered for the program. It won't change who you are fundamentally, but it may allow you to form deeper connections with your human partners. As the program progressed, researchers began to notice subtle changes in the treated females. They displayed increased capacity for emotional expression, their scales shifting colors in complex patterns that reflected their feelings. Human partners reported feeling a deeper sense of connection, an ability to understand their Draconis mates on an almost intuitive level. However, not everyone welcomed these changes. Reports began to filter in of human males experiencing psychological stress and physical exhaustion, overwhelmed by the intensity of their Draconis partners' emotions and mating drives. Dr. Sarah Warren, a human psychologist specializing in interspecies relations, found herself working overtime to develop support programs. She sat across from a visibly exhausted human man, his eyes ringed with dark circles. It's just so much, he confessed, running a hand through his hair. The emotional intensity, the physical demands. I love her, but sometimes it feels like I can't keep up. Sarah nodded sympathetically, making notes on her tablet. What you're experiencing is not uncommon, she assured him. We're developing techniques to help human partners adapt to these unique challenges. It's a learning process for all of us. As the HDCI programs expanded, tensions began to rise both on Earth and in orbit. Colonel James Harper found himself constantly on alert, coordinating security teams to protect Project Harmony facilities from attacks by the radical Earth First movement. He stood in the control room of a mixed-species security outpost, his eyes scanning multiple monitors showing feeds from around the globe. Stay vigilant, he instructed his team. We need to protect these communities, But remember, we're here to keep the peace, not escalate conflicts. In orbit, the Draconis fleet faced its own crisis. Admiral Keithax, a grizzled veteran of countless campaigns, stared out at the blue-green orb of Earth, his scales a dull gray with concern. "The gender imbalance is becoming critical," he growled to his assembled officers. "We need to send a delegation to Earth, see these Project Harmony communities for ourselves, determine if this integration is truly the best path forward for our species." As challenges mounted on all fronts, Jeremy made a breakthrough in his research. He burst into the command center, startling Marcus and Wren, who were reviewing security reports. "The eggs!" he exclaimed, his eyes bright with excitement. "The eggs produced by treated females. They're showing signs of increased genetic diversity. This could be the solution to the Draconis' limited gene pool." Marcus and Wren exchanged a look of cautious optimism. "What does this mean exactly?" Marcus asked. Jeremy took a deep breath, gathering his thoughts. "It means we have a chance to ensure the long-term survival and adaptability of the Draconis species. But it's going to require a level of cooperation between our species that's unprecedented in history." As Jeremy outlined his proposal for a large-scale voluntary genetic diversification program, the magnitude of the task ahead began to sink in. The room fell silent, the weight of two species' futures hanging in the air. Finally, Wren spoke, her voice filled with persistence. "It won't be easy. There will be resistance on both sides. But if we've learned anything from Project Harmony, it's that humans and Draconis are capable of extraordinary things when we work together." Marcus nodded, squeezing Wren's hand. "So what's our next move?" Jeremy's eyes gleamed with purpose. "We organize a global symposium, bring together leaders, scientists, citizens from both species. It's time to address concerns head-on and chart a course for our shared future." As they began to plan the symposium, none of them could have anticipated the new challenge that was about to emerge, a development that would force both species to confront the true implications of their union and question the very definition of what it meant to be human, or Draconis. Draconis or human? As the words left Jeremy's lips, a hush fell over the command center. The implications of his statement hung heavy in the air, charged with potential and fraught with uncertainty. Before anyone could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. Colonel Harper's voice crackled over the intercom. "Incoming transmission from Earth's United Council. Priority 1. Jeremy exchanged glances with Marcus and Wren before striding to the communication hub. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing the stern faces of Earth's most influential leaders. "Dr. Russell," the council chairwoman began, her tone grave, "we've received reports of a unique development within Project Harmony. Is it true? Has there been a successful human Draconis conception?" Jeremy took a deep breath, acutely aware of the weight of his next words. "Yes, Madam Chairwoman. We have confirmed the first human Draconis hybrid pregnancy." The council erupted into a cacophony of voices, some expressing awe, others voicing concerns. As the clamor subsided, the chairwoman spoke again. "Dr. Russell, in light of this unprecedented event, we're convening a global symposium. Your presence, along with key members of your team, is required." As the transmission ended, Jeremy turned to face his companions. "Well," he said, a hint of wry humor in his voice, "it seems we're going to have that meeting sooner than expected." The following weeks were a whirlwind of preparation. As news of the hybrid pregnancy spread, media frenzy reached fever pitch. Marcus and Wren found themselves at the center of attention, their relationship scrutinized and analyzed by pundits and talk show hosts alike. On the day of the symposium, the grand hall buzzed with anticipation. Humans and Draconis alike filled the seats, an unprecedented gathering of two species united by curiosity and concern. Jeremy stood at the podium, preparing to address the assembly, when a commotion erupted at the back of the hall. A group of Draconis males, led by a muscular figure with iridescent scales, pushed their way through the crowd. "We demand to be heard," the leader shouted, his voice carrying across the stunned audience. Security personnel moved to intercept, but Marcus stepped forward, raising a hand to halt them. "Let them speak," he said, his voice firm but calm. The Draconis male, introducing himself as Kraz, strode to the center of the hall. "You speak of integration, of unity," he began, his tail lashing with agitation. "Yet you exclude us. The males of our species have been sidelined in this grand experiment. We too wish to be part of Project Harmony." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Jeremy glanced at Marcus, who nodded almost imperceptibly before stepping up to the microphone. "Kraz speaks truth," Marcus said, his voice steady. "If we truly seek integration and genetic diversity, we must include all. I propose an expansion of Project Harmony to encompass Draconis males as well." Ren moved to stand beside Marcus, her scales shimmering with emotion. "My bond with Marcus has taught me the value of understanding both our species," she added. "True harmony can only be achieved when all voices are heard." The hall erupted into heated debate. In the midst of the chaos, Dr. Sarah Warren took the stage, her datapad clutched tightly in her hand. "If I may," she began, her voice cutting through the din, "I have findings that may be relevant to this discussion." As the crowd quieted, she continued, "Our research shows that the emotional bonds formed between humans and Draconis have led to decreased aggression and increased empathy in both species. These relationships are not just changing individuals, they're reshaping our societies." Lysera stepped forward next, her eyes bright with excitement. "Furthermore," she added, "our latest research indicates that the mild hormonal treatment, combined with human mating practices, has begun to affect Draconis males in proximity to treated females. We're seeing increased emotional capacity and reduced aggressive tendencies." The symposium reached a turning point when the expecting human Draconis couple was invited to speak. The human woman, her belly swollen with new life, stood hand in hand with her Draconis partner. "We don't know what the future holds for our child," the woman said, her voice trembling slightly, "but we know that this baby represents hope. Hope for a future where our species don't just coexist, but thrive together." Her words seemed to soften the atmosphere in the hall. Even those who had been vocally opposed fell silent, contemplating the implications of this new life. Seizing the moment, Jeremy presented his proposal for the genetic diversification program. He outlined a plan that respected the cultural identities of both species while promoting biological compatibility, emphasizing that participation would be strictly voluntary. As the symposium drew to a close, a historic agreement was reached. Earth's governments and the Draconis High Command jointly endorsed an expanded version of Project Harmony, now dubbed Project Genesis. This new initiative would establish permanent human Draconis communities on Earth and in space, focusing on cultural exchange, scientific collaboration, and controlled integration of mating practices. In the months that followed, the first human Draconis hybrid child was born, a healthy girl named Aurora. Her birth was celebrated across both species, a living symbol of their shared future. Marcus and Ren, now officially pair-bonded, became the child's godparents, cementing their status as icons of human Draconis cooperation. The Earth First movement gradually lost support as more humans witnessed the positive outcomes of integration. Colonel Harper's security forces evolved into a model for human Draconis military cooperation, with mixed units becoming standard across Earth's defense forces. As Project Genesis took shape, new challenges emerged. The logistics of creating space habitats for human Draconis couples proved complex, but the combined ingenuity of both species led to innovative solutions. On Earth, the first generation of human Draconis hybrid children began to enter schools, necessitating new approaches to education and social integration. Jeremy, now hailed as the architect of peace between the species, continued his research into the long-term effects of human Draconis integration. He discovered that the genetic diversity introduced by hybridization was having unexpected benefits for both species, including increased resistance to diseases and enhanced cognitive abilities. 5 years after the symposium, as humanity and the Draconis celebrated the success of Project Genesis, a new chapter began. A joint human Draconis space exploration mission was launched, with crews comprised of both species and their hybrids. As the ship broke orbit, it carried with it the hopes and dreams of two once separate species, now united in their journey to the stars. Marcus and Wren stood in front of their home in the Australian community, watching the launch on a large view screen. Between them stood Aurora, their adopted hybrid daughter, her eyes wide with wonder as she watched the ship ascend into the sky. "Do you think they'll find other species out there?" Aurora asked, her voice filled with childlike curiosity. Marcus and Wren exchanged a look, years of shared experiences passing between them in an instant. "Who knows?" Marcus said, ruffling Aurora's hair. "But whatever they find, I'm sure they'll face it together." As the ship disappeared from view, leaving only a faint trail in the atmosphere, Wren's tail curled around Marcus's leg. "Together," she repeated softly, her scales shimmering with contentment. The mating season that had once threatened to tear them apart had instead forged an unbreakable bond between two species, forever changing the course of their shared destiny. As they stood there, a family born of two worlds, they knew that this was just the beginning of an even greater adventure.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.